Okay, let's continue. Thank you for staying with us. And the second part of the Azure Immersion workshop, it's about infrastructure of the migration, and we will talk about the landing zone, what is it, how it works. We will talk about the CAF, Cloud Adoption Framework, etc. Because you can't migrate anything to the empty infrastructure. Yeah, you can. Frankly saying, you can, but anyway, you will need to plan your networks, you will need to plan your connectivity, you need to plan your security, you need to plan your sizing, governance, etc., etc. And especially if you're planning to move a lot of different workloads, you need to understand how it will be placed. Will it be one subscription, different subscription? Will it be one VNet, different VNet, how this VNet will be connected, etc., etc. All about this. It's again about the landing zone in Cloud Adoption Framework. And what is about the Cloud Adoption Framework? When you are planning to do any Azure project, but let's say it's not only about the Azure project, but also about the any cloud project, you need to define the strategy, you need to understand the motivation, you need to understand the business outcome, business justification, and prioritize projects. It's exactly about the pillars, about the triggers, why you need to move to the cloud. This is the define the strategy. You need to plan your migration, like skills, like organizational alignment, etc., etc., digital estate. And after that, you need to be ready for the Azure. And ready means that you have setup guide, you have your landing zone, you understand the landing zone expansion and validation, and only after that you are doing the migration, adapt part, right, or migration, or innovating, right? So like you innovate and build your new solution that will be used by your customers or your clients with the new Azure native tools. And same time, you need to understand the governance, you need to understand the management, you need to define the benchmarks for the governance, etc. It's all about the security, it's all about the processes, etc., etc. For the governance and for the management, what is operational baseline, operational maturity. So typically it looks like you are going to the plan, after that look for the governance and management, back to the readiness, and after that build your landing zone, and at the same time looking for the governance and management, how you will do this, and after that go to adapt and migrate your workloads, and also change the governance with benchmark, apply the best practices for your environments, your workloads, etc. And again, build the new managed tools, and it's like going one by one. It's about the cloud adoption framework. For us, it's more interesting for now, the readiness and how we can build the landing zone, and after that, some parts of the governance and management, right? So, and what exactly is the landing zone? CAF, Cloud Adoption Framework itself. Cloud Adoption Framework itself, it's a huge set of documentation. You can see here the all processes, etc. Security, the new slide on the new slide. Because it's part of the management and governance, but Microsoft defined it as like it could be better. Here you can see the scenarios how to use adoption strategy planning readiness. Readiness overview of the readiness, what you need to have, setup guide, operating model, how you're planning to work with the operating models, and ta-da, landing zone. And what is the landing zone? Ta-da! This is the landing zone. So this is the full stack what you have to build before really move to the cloud. Yes, so like you can see here main parts A, B, C, D, etc. It's enterprise enrollment with your Active Directory, Azure Active Directory on premise. It's all about the processes, about identity access management that I mentioned before, MFA, conditional access, etc., and how you can manage this and how you can control this. It's about the governance and security and management. After that, you have to build your management groups, hierarchy of the management group, where exactly the subscription, landing zone subscription or connectivity subscription or management subscription will be connected. You see your identity subscription with required tools like domain controllers, etc. If you need, plus common tools like roles, etc., policies, blah blah blah. Management subscription where you put your log analytics, automation accounts, again managed by the required security parts, etc. And after that, hub or connectivity subscription where you have all required network services like firewall, express route, VPN, application gateway, etc. And by network peering, virtual networks with the subscription with your application 1, 2, 3, or one application or different one. But anyway, if you look here, this part, it's even more important, because building this part, you can define the strategy, how you can assign the policy, how you assign the roles and permissions to work on it. So this is exactly the way. And after that, when you link, for example, some landing zone subscription to one of the leaf of this management group hierarchy, it's automatically applied the Azure policy. For example, all machines will be configured with the right log analytics, with the right automation, etc. Same time with the right roles, who has access, who has no access, and if you are moving between, again, system automatically reconfigure it, etc. So this is the way for your landing zone. And you need to define landing zone for infrastructure itself. If you look on this document, sorry, so this is the platform landing zones. When we are talking about the platform itself, what's going on? And the second one, it's about application landing zone, which application landing zone we are planning to put and how it will work, etc. It's all about, again, this solution. And how to start with it? Again, Microsoft provides a lot of tools that you need to build foundation, you need to build migration, and Microsoft help you with some blueprints in Azure that could be used to work with it. So I hope you are familiar with the blueprints or Azure accelerators. Anyway, again, back here, you can use your Azure landing zone accelerator directed from here. You will be sent it to the accelerator. I have not enough permissions, but whatever. And here will be the dedicated subscription or single subscription. It's again points of the design. Will it be customer use selection options? No. Will it be some monitoring and control with the retention days, etc.? Let's do this way. Will it be pipelines with the GitHub, and pipelines will be copied, will be its Microsoft Azure hub or third-party hub that you need to build, etc. Will it be, what is this, identity and configuration for the identity? Will it be landing zone and configuration for the landing zone, application landing zone, I mean? So all of this stuff, it's help you, but anyway, to run this wizard, this accelerator, you need to go through the accelerator and design areas. So design areas, what is this? There is again each option that you see here or here. Oops, sorry. Here. You need to plan and understand how it will work, right? So each of these options here: identity, resource organization, network topology, etc. And you need to concentrate on these 4 areas at the beginning. It's identity, resource organization, it's about the management group. It's network topology and connectivity, all about network. Of course, it's required. Governance discipline, it's also required to understand, is it correct or not correct? Are we using the right policy? Are we using the right objects, etc. for the cost management, etc. For the network, it's clear because there is a lot of diagrams like this you can find on the documentation. If you go here on the design areas, there is a network, and each part of the network, topology, connectivity, etc. Could be realized by these scenarios like this one and deploy. For the access control, you need again to define what security principle you will use: users, groups, service principles, manage identity, which roles. Will it be built-in roles or your custom roles, etc. And scope, where you're planning to assign. And again, you can see here that management groups, it's really important and should be the first point to implementing the roles here, like a scope, right? On the management group instead of subscription or resource groups. Or even resources, but anyway, you can define 4 scopes: management, subscription, resource groups, and resource. For the tagging, it's again so part of the decision, and for the tagging you have to understand, and really important to remember this when you are planning. Please do not bring your naming conversion to the Azure. It's a wrong way, always wrong way. At first, Windows machines have the limited naming conversion, 15 characters, not more, right? For some Linux application like SAP, also you can't use more than 24 characters because SAP limitation, etc. But anyway, so you can use the basic naming conversion, but do not try to put all what is the machine, where it's placed, etc., etc., in one naming conversion with the type of application, with the type of environment, dev, QA, etc., etc. No, it's a wrong one, because there is a tagging that you can use for any proposal, and you can define the tagging and automatically apply with the governance, with the Azure policy. Azure policy has a lot of options for the tagging, and you can apply it and automatically deploy this tagging. And again, policy could be assigned on the management group level, etc. So please look for just a basic naming conversion, just to understand exactly about the virtual machine, but do not explain in naming conversion about the location, about the type of environment, etc. Look, so there is a recommendation to build the functional tagging, like workloads, types, function, etc., etc. You see environment, workloads, blah blah blah. The classification, you don't need to put it again to the base naming conversion. It could be the part of. Plus, tagging, it's a good point for the cost management, where you can put the cost center, you can put the different, for example, department, etc., etc., to split between type of the partnership, are you own it or not own it, etc. The business proposal, all of this, it's about the tagging, and tagging should be defined during the landing zone design and applied like a Azure policy or Azure templates, etc., etc. So this is the right way how you build your tagging, how you build your permissions, and apply the taggings always, like you see, for the subscription or for the management groups. Plus, what we have identify more than RBAC networking and tagging, we have to identify how it works with the resources. So the way how you place resources in Azure should be split on resource group, subscription, management group. It's absolutely, but I don't know why, but a lot of people missed this one. Management groups, it's a core point in hierarchy of the management group, not only one, right? Where you join in and where you place your subscription. You can ignore the subscription, you can ignore the resource groups, etc., but you can't ignore the management groups. For the subscription, how we can split subscription and define the subscription, there is two main options. One, it's based on, let's say, environment or services, is a dev, lab, QA, production, typical way, and most of the usable way here. Or second one, it's by the organizational unit, and we place the organizational unit like HR, finance, etc., and splitting the application by this one. The second scenario, it's typically used because the security requirements. So there is a lot of, you see, some business requirements, because it's easy to account by the dev environment, etc., etc., do the audit. But in case if we are talking about the security, when we put for the dev, let's say, management groups, dev for HR, dev for finance, dev for marketing, it means that all this will be shared here and controlled by dev, then controlled by the HR. So this one, it's more security. This one is more common, let's say, sense and common use scenario. Second part, again, so it's a lot of question about, do we need one subscription or different subscription? It's again depends on the typical scenario of how you place your application. If you look again, the standard diagram, Microsoft says that it's no problem to put in one landing zone subscription different application. For example, on SAP, if we are talking about the SAP prod, we are placing all prod environment in one subscription. Why not? So they are sharing same, let's say, NetApp, and it's easy to manage it. They are sharing same network, and it's again easy to manage it, etc., etc. So all this S4HANA, S4 itself, right? So S4, PO, Solman, etc., etc., could be placed in one subscription. What is the reason to split between the subscription for the application? It's a lot of reasons, like, again, separate management team, separate maintenance, separate networks, security requirements for the network, etc., etc. So like, there is no standard answer, but anyway, in case if you're building the landing zone, at least 3 different subscription you will have, or even 4, right? So one, it will be connectivity subscription, it's definitely required to be on the another subscription because it's managed by network team and this guy is quite crazy, etc., in terms of security, right? So give them the separate hub subscription and place it there. Management subscription, it's again will be better to have it separately and then place each log analytics to each subscription. Why? Because it's easy for the tools, it's easy for the scripts, etc. You don't need, for example, if I want to connect to the log analytics from the script, I need to provide ID of subscription, I need to provide ID of work analytics workspace. So it means that every time when I run the scripts, I need at least a switch between subscription. When I have one subscription, it's easy for me to work, so it's easy for me to maintain, etc. And there is no issue that machine from the one landing subscription sends the data to the another subscription. If the machine has the access, why not, right? So it's again okay and working. So we have 2 and landing zone itself 3. And maybe identity and all tools for the identity, etc., could be separated too. So for subscription, how to split here? Again, this subscription for application, all application in one, but it's prod, another one QA, another one dev, another one sandbox. But it works, but there is a lot of criteria, so you can look on it, define, you see, all these ways. So management groups again, so best practice for the management groups, you can see here, it's again so based on common sense of the subscription, how you're working for. So it's production and all production subscription, or by the department and different type of the department. After that we have resource groups inside this one. So, and why again we are doing this? Because the policy, because the permissions, etc. When we start with the business units level, right, so root level, we assign all common policy on the root level. After that, if there's some details on the geographic level, on the environment level, or whatever, right? So next business units, and we can easily move our subscription between the regions, between the management groups, and policy will be reapplied, RBAC will be reapplied, and we don't need, so like again, so it's typically for the big organization when someone builds the landing zone itself and do not care about security and do not care about monitoring, etc. For example, how we are working with SAP, right? So we have subscription. In this subscription, built by the standard template, we have network, we have resource group for the network object and administrative object, like a jump box, etc. And one additional resource group for the instance, it's virtual machine for SAP automation deployment framework. This instance placed in one resource group, and we just start and build. This instance will build all required resource group for the SAP, like for the libraries where the binaries will be stored, for the security where key vault will be stored with the required SAP keys, etc., etc. Where the infrastructure itself will be stored, like subnets, network security groups, like NetApps, etc. All these objects common for infrastructure, different. And after that, we are building the different resource group for different deployment of SAP, PO, S4, Solman, whatever, right? So like, it's how it's built. But we are not care about any security permissions. We are not care about any monitoring. We are care, but on another way, about the monitoring permissions, etc., monitoring settings. We just build green subscription outside, let's say, this infrastructure. After that, security team just linked our subscription to required management groups. Ba-bam! All security policies come to this. All log analytics policies come to this. All options for the backups come to this, etc., 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 etc. Yeah, I mentioned that we are here. Yeah, we are here because we build the backups, right? So like and it's just configured correctly with the correct policy. We build the automation in log analytics. It's just configured to send the data to correct log analytics, and after that, automation accounts with the run books that analyze this stuff, like for the prediction, for the understanding what's going on, etc., happens there. So it's how it works, right? So. And we done. Team done works, right? So like this is the consideration. And plus, let's. By the way, I am speaking like quite faster. Are there any questions? If you have some questions, just raise the hand. That's like there's a lot of stuff in Teams. You can use reaction. If it's okay. Give me the like. If you have some questions, raise the hands, etc. So like just do not keep silent if you have some questions. Don't worry. Is it clear about the CAF? By the way, for the CAF we have had, because this one immersion workshop is the last one on this season. We are planning to have the next immersion workshops next season, but for the CAF we already had it. You can again contact with our Microsoft manager who can help you to get the presentation. But anyway, presentation is nothing without explanation. So if you have some questions, you're welcome. This one, it's again how you work on it and build it. And after that, again, you need to do the governance for the designed part and management and monitoring. And what is management and monitoring? It's first one, it's exactly inventory and visibility. Build this one. By the way, for the inventory and visibility, just a second. I am trying to find cough. No. I am trying just to understand that it's just for the beginning to have exactly understanding of the only only for the monitoring. So when we are talking about the monitoring here, inventory and visibility without operational excellence, right? Protect and recovery and workloads. This document, it's only the requirements, 57 pages, only the requirements like this, what should be defined during this process. And when we talk about the monitoring strategy, what exactly is the monitoring strategy and what should be defined, how it should looks like. It's exactly the standard landing zone, where the data is ended, which automation accounts we need, log analytics accounts we need, etc. It's all about this one. For example, advisor activities, right? So do you remember that's about the cost analysis, performance analysis with some recommendation about the scripts? This is exactly what we are looking for and what we have to finalize during the landing zone building process. Oh, okay, so if there's no questions, let's back to the presentation. And to help you to build this one, Microsoft provides you a few options. First option, you already saw it, it's landing zone deployer tool, accelerator tool. It's help you to build all requirement landing zone. It will build all stuff like monitoring, log analytics, configure the policies, etc. If you are not ready to use this tool or not familiar or don't think that it's quite big one, you can use the blueprints. So Azure Blueprints, this one, it's a tools inside the Azure that help you to build required objects, required policy, required stuff inside existing one automatically and continue to control it. If you look for the CAF, Cloud Adoption Framework, there is two options, CAF Foundation and CAF Migration Landing Zone. This one will help you to build landing zone 01. And again, so you can't define the blueprint like this just only on subscription level. You can do this only by management groups level. And you see here that a lot of options, artifacts will be built during this process. So like we need to build shared services like key vaults, log analytics. We need to build resource group for the networking with landing zone, etc., etc. We have the second one, CAF Foundation. And this one will build you full stack of the objects, not only you say that like resource group, key vault, log analytics, networking. There is no networking, you can add network, etc., like Azure Resource Management template and add your template, or you choose from the library, etc., or from the previous one. But here, for example, you can see the options that stack should be defined and cost center should be required. Tech, oops. Cancel. Okay. Tech for the resource groups, again, cost center should be defined. You can duplicate this and build your additional text, etc., etc. Monitoring, so like to turn on monitoring for each subscription and which one will be turned on. You see what you are looking to monitor on security center. It's exactly the same like you saw before for the landing zone accelerator. Allowed location, so you can define the allowed location to control your spend, or control your governance, data governance, service governance, etc., and block. So it will be the policy that will block anything that will not be built in West Europe, for example. Resource groups also. Network watcher, which type of the resources you are allowed to build, etc. SKU for the virtual machine, so you control the sizes, etc. The security center template also could be used, etc. This is the blueprint. So like if we are talking about the landing zone accelerator, it's built all you need in one shot with a lot of things that's maybe not needed or not understandable from the beginning, but you will have, again, so just easy to play, right? So go to the cuff, go to the ready, go to the landing zone, and click on the deploy to Azure. Oh, most the same here. West Europe. Here this Europe. So management group's prefix. Enterprise landing zone deployment. Dedicated for each subscription, for each resource groups, etc. Here. So we configured their option for the security, mostly the same. We just choose the different subscription where it will be placed. You see, and it will define all this policy and or turn on Microsoft Defender for cloud for different objects. Second one, this one is not available for the blueprints, but you see, you will replicate all scripts, all artifacts with your GitHub. Network connectivity, it will not just build the network, but it will build exactly the instances, enable all services. You see tier for the Azure, which one we will place it, what is the networking, and we enable all this. You see deploy express route gateway. Yeah, we are planning to have the VPN gateway too. The size of the VPN gateway, all the stuff will be configured too. Identity, so all options for identity and where it will be placed too. Landing zone configuration itself. So like, you see, all this policy, will we control it, will we not, and which subscription, etc., how many subscriptions will be configured with this policy. It's the same. So like, what I'm trying to say, blueprint, it's, let's say, more granulated, and you can apply it one by one. For the landing zone accelerator, you build anything in one shot from the scratch. Is it clear? So, and after that, expanding, right? So like hosting, how we are host, what is the network, etc. It's additional design of each application. Azure fundamentals, so like we are trying to build additional scripts, etc., etc. And governance consideration, it's all about the baseline, how we are controlling by default, again, blueprints and Azure landing zone accelerator, turn on the policy and turn on for you baseline, but you need to extend your baselines for the governments, not only for the security but also for the checking the types or checking the operations, checking the performance. It's all about the governance. And again, recommended parts, how to go with, it's from the, for example, if we are looking for the storage, it's part of the resources from the cloud adoption framework. When you're looking for the decision guide, you can find the decision for the identity, policy enforcement, etc., decision for the networking, which plan your networks, etc., best practices, the same for the storages, which storage, how to select the correct one, which option you need, etc. It's again about the granularity that I mentioned from the previous one, etc. And again, we are deploying. So what will be deployed, we already discussed it. Blueprint, I already demonstrated. And Azure policy itself, again, it's mentioned before, but in reality, what is Azure policy? Most close part for the Azure policy, it's policy of Active Directory, where you can define something and assign, but you're assigning this not for the operation system, but there's some guest policy too, but you are assigning this for the Azure objects, how the Azure object will be configured. There is a lot of definition of the policy. For example, when I'm saying that all monitoring will be configured, log, it means that there is some policy on the monitoring that allow you define, let's see, deploy, yes, this one. Configure log analytics extension to be enabled on Windows virtual machine scale set, right? Or deploy log analytics for the Linux machines, etc. So all of these definitions could be used here. So configure log analytics extension for the ARC. For example, any machine that will be connected outside Azure infrastructure by Azure Arc, we just enable them log analytics, and we assign this policy on which scope. Definitely we will assign it on the management group scope. We will enforce this policy. Parameters of this policy ask us the log analytics workspace. We have here like this one. We are doing remediation. Look, it means, what is remediation? It's named, you will find maybe on the documentation, like a DINE. Deploy if not exist. It means that if each machine has no configured log analytics, Azure will use special account. We create the manage identity. It will be created on the West Europe. And this West Europe manage identity will be assigned with the log analytics contributor role. And it means that system will scan the object and do the remediation for each virtual machine and configure each virtual machine to have log analytics that will send this data on the required part. Non-compliance and check, of course, is it compliant or not compliant for now. Non-compliance message, you can change it and create. It will create the assignment. It will create the remediation task. And this remediation task will be scheduled and executed to be fixed. So it's how I can control any environments here. And these policies, again, sorry, it's the same like you play it, maybe not with the Active Directory, but this one is next level, so it's higher. We control the object. Backup. Azure Backup should be enabled on the virtual machines. Is it? Is it? Assign, remediation. This policy has no remediation, you see. Deploy if not exist, but we can, it's just for the checking again, so for the governance, but we can look for the configure the backups with the some text, etc. Is it? Yeah, is it? So what it's mean, do you remember about the text, etc.? So like we can location find the West Europe. Backup policy for the... I have no backup policy. So define the backup policy for the machines, and it will be, again, configured and remediated automatically, and all machines will have the backups with required policies. So easy. I think easiest way to have it. So there is some questions. Yeah, so Word document, it's my own document. It's not about, it's like a compilation of all requirements from the COF. So like, so it's my own, but just to understand how it looks like when you are planning some monitoring, etc. It's just a demonstration that it will be about 50 pages document just to explain for the client, for the customer, what exactly should be the automation. There is some noise from one of you. I can see from where. Someone is zipping. Robin Johnson.
Sorry.
Yeah. We're hearing your, I think it was your, who is Alexa?
Yes, sorry for that.
No, don't worry, no problem.
Okay.
So this is the scenarios how you can configure landing zones before you go in. So, and again, so like NordCloud will be happy to help you with assessment, with doing the going through the cloud adoption framework, compliance, again migration process with the piloting, etc. And again, if you're interested on some contacts, documentation, presentation, etc., you can register by here, and you're welcome. And we have again, so not that time, but we have some break until 11:20. By the way, I already put to the chat the information about what we have to do with the lab, and I will demonstrate you how it works. So please use your real name and the same email like you use it to register for the for this seminar. Of course, and activation code that I put it here. And after that, you start the lab, and the lab will be built at about 30 minutes. So if you are planning to do, it's already, for me, it's already done. If you are planning to do this and following me during the next session, please do this exercise before. And we have the break until 11:20. You're welcome back at 11:20, and we will talk about migration process itself with some demos and start the labs anyway. So thank you, and see you in 10 minutes.